Hi, everybody. I have a couple of things on here that I want to talk about. One of them's food related, and the other one is not food related. I'm going to start with the non-food related thing first, and then I'll shoot a second video about the food item, because there's two different things. Well, I'm sure, as you all know, this past Tuesday, May 23rd, 24th, 2022, there was a mass shooting down there in, I think it's Udon, Texas. That sounds about right. I think that's how you say it. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Okay? It wasn't my intent, but you all generally should know what I'm talking about. Well, and before I get into what I'm thinking, I'm going to preface this with one thing first. For all of you that are just like going to lose your minds over me talking about, how we can, make the schools safer and gun control and thus and so and so forth. Let me tell you this. Don't go running and making comments right now. Just listen to what I have to say first before you post anything. See, now, the thing is, I'm pretty sure I've said, if memory serves correctly, something about gun control on this channel previously. And I'm not saying that, like, we should take everybody's guns away. I'm not saying that. I'm saying what should happen, and this is how I feel about it. People with psychiatric issues, like they're clinically depressed and indicated that they might, like, self-harm or, like, cut their throats or slit their wrists or shooting, like they're planning on harming other people, and like they go on, like, say, Facebook or Instagram or whatever, for example, and say, I'm going to blow up a school and blah, 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 like that kid in Texas did on Tuesday, which he did. I mean, like, they're talking about the fact that he was on social media talking about how, excuse me, I got the sleepies. But the guy was talking on, online about how he was planning on hurting people, like going to a school somewhere and blowing it up or shooting it up or whatever. I mean, I'm like, why didn't Facebook, instead of, for example, like, messing with my account because I shared something, for example, about Lestat de Lancourt, who's a character from Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles, which they did last year. And I'm like, why are you messing with my account? All I did was share something about a fictional character who hasn't physically done anything to you. I mean, if they're having a cow over that, they should be more worried about what this kid did yet on Tuesday. I mean, I don't get that. But it is what it is. Well, what winds up happening is he posted stuff and was even reaching out to people, like in Germany or whatever, or some, excuse me, the sleepies. He reached out to somebody going, I'm going to, look at these lovely guns and, the ammo and so on and so forth. And I've got a secret, and I'll tell you what it is. And I'm like, oh my God, why didn't this, two things. One, why didn't this girl reach out to, like the FBI or somebody and say, hey, and, like, screenshot the crap out of it and send this to him and say, hey, I've been contacted by one of your citizens and they're threatening to blow up a school or whatever. I don't understand why she didn't reach out to the police with that. Or why, like, Facebook or whatever platform he was sending those messages on didn't flag that and, notify the police or something, or the FBI or somebody. Part of me doesn't understand why somebody else wasn't catching this. I mean, I'm like, what are you all doing? Like, why are you so worried about, like, something as simple as me sharing an article that somebody else wrote saying, I happen to like Lestat or whatever, and I find this interesting, versus somebody saying, I'm going to go blow up a school or something. I mean, That I don't understand. I mean, it bothers me that, something that stupid could happen. I mean, I think Facebook does, yes, need to improve its filters and whatever, but seriously. I mean, they need to, people need to be paying closer attention to people with mental health issues. I mean, let's face it, 10 years ago in 2012, the Sandy Hook incident happened. I mean, it was the same thing, basically. And what I don't understand is why in the last decade, people haven't, gotten better at paying attention to people with mental health issues. Excuse me, yeah, because, I mean, I think, and they can lie on paperwork, but what I think needs to happen is, they do need to start being more aware, and I think the medical community, especially those in the psychiatric field, need to be actively encouraged to, like, notify police, or, they should have, like, some kind of database where it, like, links in with, like, the, like with whatever database that they use for when they do background checks for guns. And I also think that, like, if, like, say, psychiatrist in, like, I don't know, Hershey, Pennsylvania, for example, we'll just pick a town. Hershey, Pennsylvania, discovers that they have a patient who says that they're going to drive to, I don't know, like, Brunswick, New Jersey, and blow up something. Not saying that happened, but just for example, like, they need to break the patient's confidence and not only contact, like, the FBI and whoever else they might need to contact, but they need to put that person's information in this database for, this potential database is saying, I have a patient that said they're going to go out and they're going to self-harm, like, seriously self-harm and or hurt others, and they have a wish to die by, cop or something. Things like that. They should definitely have a database where, like, they can put that in there, and, like, it'll flag, not only that person's name and social, but it's like once they put it into the system, like, it'll also flag any relatives of theirs, with weapons that they may have purchased over the years. I mean, especially if they know the person is alive. And what should happen, and this is what I think should happen, what should happen is, like, if, in, like, for example, the case of the Texas shooter from Tuesday, he goes in and buys a gun, it should have been pinged immediately that he was going to cause harm. Or, like, with the Sandy Hook kid, who, like, for example, with the Sandy Hook shooter, that kid, like, and this is a matter of public record, that kid actually had just, that boy's parents had a meeting, or at least his mom did, where that boy's school system pulled his mom and I think dad and stepmom maybe aside and said, hey, do you realize your son's got an issue? And stuff like that. That should be put in there. And it's like, what should have happened is the, whoever, or like the ATF or whatever, should have been notified. Like, this notifies, like the ATF and stuff, and there should be, like, gun control as far as, like, notifying, like, immediate family members, like mothers, fathers, sister, brother, uncle, aunt, cousins, grandparents, like immediate family, or like, people in the neighborhood, or whatever, like, notify them that, hey, just so you know, there's somebody, and without divulging the person's name or information, say, hey, just so you know, somebody close to you has indicated that they're interested in self-harming and possibly harming others. please be advised to, lock up your guns and bullets and whatever, and make sure that they can't access. Start locking your stuff down and checking with your friends, loved ones, and neighbors to make sure there's nothing going on, and make sure everybody's okay. Because, I mean, that it also encourages community. I mean, granted that, sounds like I'm fear-mongering, but I'm not, okay? Because, I mean, like, for example, the Sandy Hook shooter shot and killed his mom. And after he got into her gun safe, he killed her. I mean, this, if you don't believe me, go back and look. It's a matter of public record because they went and found his mom shot to death in their house. And the kid that shot that Texas school up on Tuesday, same thing. He shot his grandmother in the face. I mean, seriously, this is in the news. I mean, if you don't believe me, go look it up. But I mean, seriously. I mean, that's what I think needs to happen is, and they've actually talked about it recently. They should have what they're calling red flag laws, which is something I mentioned before that, there should be like red flags in the system, but I think that's what needs to happen. It's like they need to start having like red flags, like something to trigger it. But I also think that, this way, like it prevents bad things from happening. I mean, recently, like in the last 2-3 years, I know it's been in the last 2-3 years maybe, a boy up in, I think, Columbus, Ohio, got mad and shot at some kids. And not only did they catch the boy, but they actually charged the boy's parents for, like assault or whatever. And I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Like, the parents need to, be held accountable for their kids' bad behavior. I mean, but if the kid's over 18, like the Texas shooter, for example, I mean, yeah, granted, his grandmother isn't responsible for him, but, somebody should have notified her to lock her guns down and notify the family, other family members, to be aware of somebody potentially having an issue and coming to maybe hurt them. I mean, I think that, like, like if I had a cousin who was, like clinically depressed all the time and wanting to self-injure and maybe harm others or something, and I had a gun, I would definitely want to know if that person is actually seriously making threats and, talking about that. But, like, if they actually said something like that to me, I would probably go to the police with it in my hometown and say, I would show up at the police station and be like, can I talk to a detective or, like the captain or somebody, and in private, and like I would tell them, hey, I don't feel comfortable going to, I don't know who else to talk to, but I recently discovered that my relative so-and-so, and I would take a picture, if I had a picture of the person with me, and say, my relative so-and-so has indicated that they're going to harm themselves potentially and possibly others with a weapon of some sort. And I just want to make sure that I at least notify authorities somewhere to check on this person and make sure that they haven't, hurt themselves or tried to hurt others in the process, and like you can contact whoever you need to contact. And it be like anonymous or whatever, like Crime Stoppers or something. I mean, granted, that's, snitches get stitches or whatever, or snitches end up in ditches or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. I feel that, only the really violent criminals would want to not have anybody tell on them to the police or whatever. I feel more like if a person really truly needs that intervention of sorts, if you want to call it that, to prevent them from potentially hurting themselves or others, then yeah, I'm all for, somebody getting that intervention done to them, because, it could possibly prevent what happened this past Tuesday in Texas, or like Sandy Hook back in 2012, or that incident up in, Ohio, where that kid hurt those people. I'm serious. It bothers me. But, I did want to get on here and at least talk about that. And one of the thing, and I want to say this, one of the teachers that died was my husband's age. And it bothers me. I'm thinking, the one lady was 44 years old and she died, was shot and killed by this kid. And I am so sorry for her family. Because I think I read where her husband just died of a broken heart. And I think that's so sad. I mean, my condolences go out to everybody in Texas, in that little town down there. I can't imagine what they're going through. And I don't want to know. Ever. I hope I never do. But anyway, I do think that, something needs to get done where, people start paying closer attention to the folks in and around their lives and maybe help prevent another mass shooting from happening. I mean, because it's like they say, see something, say something. I mean, that's true. I mean, you need to be paying attention to the folks around you, and especially if you think somebody's, struggling with like depression or whatever, get them help, and if they're really angry and hateful towards the world, get them help, and don't let them potentially end up a statistic like that boy in Texas or the kid with the Sandy Hook shooting or anything like that, or those two boys from the Columbine thing from 1999. I mean, seriously, I do hope that the people in Texas, in that little town in Texas, heal, but it'll be a very long time before they do. And I hope that, they start working towards, in the federal government, towards, something to help bolster up preventing, bad things like this from happening a little too easy. Well, anyway, I'm going to pause here because I want to talk about the food item now in a separate video, because this is more happy stuff, okay? So hang on just a moment and I'll be right back, okay?